Hello and welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming to check out my mixed media Easter decoration inspiration. So I took a small canvas from the dollar store and I coated it with just plain gray acrylic paint, and I did a thin coat and then I dried it a little bit, and then I wiped some of the globs that were still wet on the canvas off, which left me with like what I think is a pretty neat, like distressed looking canvas. Then I took some brown acrylic paint and I just kind of put it around the edges just to break up the gray a little bit. And I did the same thing with drying it with my heat tool and then kind of using a baby wipe to wipe off any excess. Then I started layering my layers onto the canvas, and I had a piece of burlap. So I cut that down to size, and I had a vintage bingo board piece. So I kind of sanded the edges to get rid of the notches and just distressed it a little bit. I took off the bottom where it had the name and started laying stuff down. This whole process, I was kind of unsure as to where I wanted everything to go. I had a vision in my mind of what I basically wanted it to look like, but it took some effort to get it exactly how I wanted it. So that's just a little bit of Tim Holtz white crackle paint, and again I'm using my heat tool to speed up the drying time. To make the crackles in the paint stand out a little bit more, I take some distressed crayon and I scribble it on my mat there, and I add a little bit of water and then I rub it into the crackles. I thought the bingo card needed just a little something, so I went in with regular distress oxides and distress inks, and I grunged up the card just a little bit with browns and adding water droplets. So then I'm going back in and laying on my layers to see exactly how I wanted things to go. I had some old Scrabble pieces and also another game that I don't remember what it is, the yellow letters, and I didn't really like just the Scrabble pieces, so I wanted to have an extra happy on there just to break up the browns. So I was pretty happy with the letters the way they were, so I pulled in some of this lacy trim and I added some inks to them so they weren't so white, and I kind of stained them a little bit of a bluish color. So I colored two pieces of the lace, even though I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted them and if I was even going to use both of them. But I'm checking out my options here. So I was definitely positive that's where I wanted the burlap to go, so I used some Fabri-Tac and glued that down to the canvas. So again, I'm laying everything on to my canvas to see exactly how I wanted it to go, and I pulled out some fasteners so I could fix on that little claspy thing that I was going to hold the flowers on with, but I felt like I needed to lay everything out to make sure that's where I wanted the flowers to go. So I pulled in some silk ribbon, and I didn't like that, and I'm laying the blue down again and just trying to figure out exactly how I needed it to go. And I thought that the straight edge of that lace was a little too harsh, so I just trimmed it off, and I thought that looked a whole lot better. I needed to punch two small holes in so I could fasten the little hook on, and I ended up having to get my crocodile out to do the job. Then I used the same Fabri-Tac and glued down the yellow letters to the top of the canvas. I had some antique gold fasteners that I used that matched the hook pretty well, so I ended up using those, and again using Fabri-Tac glued the bingo card down to the canvas. Again with the Fabri-Tac, I glued the blue lace down, and I kind of had to stretch it to get it to wrap around the sides completely. My trusty hot glue gun was by my side and warmed up and ready to go, so I just used hot glue to pop down the final letters onto this piece. Once the little chicks were attached to the frame, I thought it needed a little something else, so I found some old pink thread, and I went ahead and kind of looped and made a bit of a nest on the back of it, so just little pieces of the thread would show through when it was laying down. Went ahead and attached that to my board with hot glue as well, and then I was back with the silk ribbon that I didn't use up top, but I wanted to incorporate it. I used milled lavender stain to color the ribbon, and I don't know why it's turned like a teal color, but I kind of like the way it looked, so I used the stain and then I dried it with my heat tool, and then I ended up going back with some actual milled lavender ink spot and did the same thing, kind of stained the ribbon a little bit to give it a two-tone look, but it kind of reminded me of a vintage Eastery look that I was going for. Tied it into a bow around the canvas, and I thought it needed just a little bit more interest on that bottom left corner, so after I added the dried flowers, I added a little mini platelet and attached it to the ribbon with the brads that it came with. I finished it off by giving it a pedestal with what I think is an old candlestick holder that I got in a box of junk from a yard sale. So there you have it, my mixed media Easter decoration inspiration. I hope you enjoyed watching. Make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe.
It's amazing. Thank you for watching.